Coming up today, Trinity celebrates Women's History Month.
And more details on Trinity's changes.
All this and more right now on Newswave. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to Newswave. Today is March 24th, and I'm Cole Isaacson.
And I'm Luke McCauley. Here is Women's Month, History Month, and here at Trinity, we had a variety of celebration events, from concerts to on-campus activities. With the help of different organizations, events were hosted to recognize the important roles women play in our society. The month was kicked off with a performance from the women in the music department, alongside the Symphony Orchestra. Following this, the Student Diversity and Inclusion Office held an international women's tour where students were able to learn about women at historical figures and the resources available to them on campus. The student explained that, quote, "It is important to recognize women's efforts over history, especially women of color, because this type of diversity is what makes our society more inclusive and encouraging for women to continue to pursue higher education," end quote. Lastly, the Student Government Association set in motion their project with Ant Flow, a company providing students access to free organic cotton pads and tampons through dispensers across campus. All these events remind us that the importance in not only commemorating women, but the hope that we get to a point where women's contributions are celebrated all the time without effort, without us having to make a thing out of it, but until we have that, these events are a wonderful opportunity for people to build knowledge based on year after year.
Both the national runner-up Trinity volleyball team and the Sweet 16 Trinity women's basketball team are gaining some well-deserved national recognition. However, there was a time when women's sports did not exist at Trinity. Betsy Paisley's book, From the Sidelines to the Headlines, The Legacy of Women's Sports at Trinity University, details the progress of women's sports in both at Trinity and in the greater United States. Paisley shares the narratives of Shirley Rushing Poteet and Emily Burr Foster, two women who pioneered women's sports at Trinity. Rushing Poteet started at Trinity in 1960 as a physical education instructor, teaching classes and leading women's sports programs as the only woman in the Trinity Athletics Department. Rushing Poteet also facilitated the first women's tennis team at Trinity. Emily Burr Foster transferred to Trinity in a few years into Rushing Poteet's career and joined the tennis program. Burr Foster won 4 national championships before becoming the coach of the women's tennis team. Both these women persisted in giving women a chance to play the sports that they loved, and their legacies and accomplishments have made Trinity a better establishment in the process.
Both the national runner-up Trinity volleyball team and the Sweet 16 Trinity women's basketball team are gaining some well-deserved national recognition. However, there was a time where women's sports didn't exist at Trinity. Betsy Paisley's book, quote, From the Sidelines to the Headlines, The Legacy of Women's Sports at Trinity University, details the progress of women's sports both at Trinity and the greater United States. Paisley shares the narratives of Shirley Rushing Poteet and Emily Burr Foster, two women who pioneered women's sports at Trinity. Rushing Poteet started at Trinity in 1960 as a physical education instructor, teaching classes and leading women's sports programs as the only woman in the Trinity Athletics Department. Rushing Poteet also facilitated the first women's tennis team at Trinity. Emily Burr Foster transferred to Trinity a few years into Rushing Poteet's career and joined the tennis program. Burr Foster won 4 national championships before becoming coach of the women's tennis team. Both of these women persisted in giving women a chance to play sports they loved, and their legacies and accomplishments have made Trinity a better establishment in the process.
That story was just so great you had to hear it twice. On Friday, March 3rd, Trinity hosted its annual Greek Olympics competition, where Greek life organizations competed in a variety of events and showed off their organizational pride. The clubs participated in a series of different events, including tug of war, a water balloon toss, and a bouncy house relay race. When the day was finally over, fraternity Chi Delta Tau and sorority Gamma Chi Delta came out on top and were crowned Olympic champions. While the Olympics provided bragging rights to the winners, they are also a great opportunity for organizations to bond. One participant said, quote, "Participating in competitions with other new members in my pledge class was definitely the most enjoyable part of the Greek Olympics. Not only was the bond created within each organization, but the relationships between organizations were also strengthened. As one member put it, we were cheering each other on, and there was a sense of Greek unity as we cheered each other's organizations and they cheered for us." On Saturday, February 24th, the Coates Esplanade was filled with live music, games, and food as Trinity celebrated its second annual Black Essence Festival. Sponsored by the Black Student Union, or BSU, and Trinity Diversity Connection, or TDC, the San Antonio area Black vendors were invited to help celebrate the day, with singers and music featuring musical performance by Dev Soul Band and a dance routine by the Art Noir production. Devin Matthews, the lead singer of Dev Soul Band, emphasized the importance of diversity in the Black Essence Festival and encouraged students to talk to strangers, saying, quote, "Look around and say hi to people you don't know. I don't care what your background is. If you ever need somebody to perform for you, just let me know," Matthews said. The event was planned entirely by students who are looking forward to bigger and bigger events as this becomes an annual tradition. Still coming up, more updates on Trinity's dining vendor changes.
And mass protests arise in France.
All this after the break.
Wake the sun, tell him that I've begun to dream of things to come, and tell the trees not to look for me. I'm going to find some peace of mind. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
And welcome back to Newswave. You get a look at Trinity University. A good sunny day, but it did not start out like that. Some rain earlier today. Luke, are you a rain person?
I mean, I would say I'd honestly prefer a bit of a hot weather, but playing for the men's team and having to practice almost every day, the heat can be pretty tough to get through. But I'm definitely enjoying the change of weather. How about you, Cole?
Absolutely. Love the sun. Came here to get warm, and I'm getting that today. Started out very rainy. Did not love that because I just don't like rain very much. But once it got sunny, I was very happy. And there was kind of that cool, moderate climate where it just rained, so it was still nice and cool, and it was very fresh air, but it was nice and sunny, so I really loved that.
Really depends on my mood. Some days it's nice to get a nice, refreshing rain out, and sometimes the heat's too much. It always looks better depending on the day. So.
Absolutely, Luke. Earlier this year, Trinity University announced that Chartwell's had won the contract for on-campus dining, replacing Aramark. The panel, which includes Chartwell's staff, discussed a number of potential changes for Trinity under its new dining plan. Among the topics discussed were a virtual dining hall where students order food through an app or QR code or a self-serve kiosk. The dishes would be made fresh by Chartwell's employees and would replace the slot currently taken by Revolve in the Coach Student Center. Another topic discussed at the panel was a redesign of Maybe Dining Hall, which would have two new concepts. Mesa, which would serve street food, and Delicious Without, which would serve allergen-free and plant-based options. Of course, these changes are not final and are subject to change, but the news was met with positive reactions from panel attendees.
According to KStat.com, the Texas Department of Health and Human Services has recently awarded $3.4 million to the organization Be Well Texas to strengthen recovery housing for young adults aged 18 to 25. Be Well Texas is a program for people seeking help with substance use and or mental illness and specializes in patients struggling with opioid addiction. The program will help to fund transitional homes such as Deeplore's House here in San Antonio, a home for women recovering from different addictions. Deeplore's House has been able to use some of the granted money to further train their staff and hopes to expand soon to allow more people the chance to get help. One resident stated that, quote, Deeplore's House is a definite safe haven for me. I feel loved every time I walk in here. To know that other people care makes us care about ourselves. It makes us want to keep going and have a will, end quote. People ages 18 through 25 with a substance use or mental health diagnosis can qualify for this program. For more information, contact Be Well Texas at 880-85-BE-WELL.
As Texas battles historically high home prices and rent costs, state legislatures have had an idea to ease the affordability crisis for Texans. Build more homes and costs will come down. As a result, several bills have been introduced in the Texas legislature to speed up construction processes. Some measures include allowing builders to use less land to build single-family homes, making the process of obtaining local permits faster and making it more difficult for neighbor groups to block new housing projects. It's still left to be seen whether these measures will gain traction in the state legislature. However, the issue does offer a rare bipartisan cause that has the potential support from both sides of the aisle. Sherry Greensburg, a former state representative, now a fellow at the LGB School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin, said, quote, in years gone by, people might have looked at the affordability housing and said, oh well, this is just an issue in the urban centers. That's not true anymore.
On Monday, March 20, the Senate State Affairs Committee advanced Senate Bill 14 in a party line vote. If passed, the bill will impact transgender youth in the state, banning therapies that major medical groups recommend for kids with gender dysphoria and prohibiting transition-related surgeries for minors. Shortly after, LGBTQ advocacy groups and hundreds of people rallied outside the Capitol against the bill. The commitment passed the measure in a 7-3 voice vote, with an 8th Republican registering a vote in support in writing. According to the Texas Tribune, a number of Texas medical groups have already testified against the bill, arguing for the health and mental well-being of trans youth in the state. Louis Appeal, president of the Texas Pediatric Society, said, quote, a blanket ban on these medical treatments is a very blunt instrument for the state to use and prohibits treatment options that are critical for the health and well-being of a transgender youth with gender dysphoria, end quote. Up ahead, it's springtime in Texas.
And then sports from Caleb.
We'll be right back.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov. Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you were really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
As of March 20th, it is official spring in San Antonio. At around 4:24 p.m. on Monday, the sun was directly over the equator to signal the start of the new season. This spring also predicted to favor warmer than average temperatures with close to normal rainfall, not ruling out the complete possibility of a few cool weather days. But South Central Texas is hoping to see warmer weather than average for April, May, and June. After 3 consecutive years of a dry weather pattern known as La Niña, we are finally moving into a more neutral climate pattern between La Niña and El Niño. This change comes as much-needed relief, as San Antonio and South Central Texas have been affected by the dry weather pattern with a constant drought since January 2022. Even the water level in our main water source here in San Antonio, the Edwards Aquifer, has already dropped 30 feet in the past year alone, not to mention the increasing water demand for irrigation in the spring. There is a serious threat that the aquifer could drop to its lowest levels since 2014. Based on data provided by the National Centers for Environmental Information, it would still take roughly 18 inches of rain to end the widespread extreme and exceptional drought in San Antonio, leaving it very unlikely that some sort of drought situation will continue through the summer. This past Monday, the Texas Senate began the voting process on two pieces of legislation that could designate billions of dollars towards new water projects. These projects would be funded by the updated versions of the Senate Bill 28 and Senate Joint Resolution 75, which have just been advanced to the Senate floor. Through the bills have received bipartisan popularity, environmental advocates demonstrated concern over some of their more vague details. They worried that projects involving the recycling of water output released during oil and gas production have been insufficiently researched. However, defenders of the bill have cited the success of ongoing research, and the recent budget surplus set grounds for passing the bills. Beyond Congress, this legislative package would require voter approval in the fall elections. According to TexasTribune.org, a poll of 1,000 Texans voted revealed 89% support for the multi-billion-dollar package. As this ambitious project moves through Senate procedures, we at Newswave will keep you updated every step of the way.
On March 10, 2023, the Silicon Valley Bank was shut down by federal regulators. The Silicon Valley Bank was the 16th largest bank in the country and is the largest bank to shut down since Washington Mutual in 2008. The bank's closure was a result of several factors, including a loss of value on bonds due to higher interest rates and customers rapidly withdrawing large amounts of money. While this could have been catastrophic for the people with deposits still in the bank, the FDIC was able to help people get their money back. Normally, the FDIC would return a deposit of $25,000 or less. However, they decided to make an exception, returning deposits to people with more than $25,000 in the bank. This way, people who may have not seen their money again were able to get it back in full. This exception was made to reduce public distrust in the banking system. According to an article by Aaron Gobler, quote, "The lack of confidence could create more of the problem that contributed to Silicon Valley Bank's failure. Account holders rushing to withdraw deposits from a bank that doesn't have funds to cover them." Fortunately, the FDIC acted quickly and was able to avoid a worst-case scenario for the national economy. Barricades were erected around Manhattan Courthouse on Monday as a grand jury heard testimony that could result in former President Donald Trump being indicted as soon as this week. The hearings are in connection to an alleged hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels during Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. The incident would mark the first ever criminal case against a U.S. president. On Saturday, Trump urged his followers on social media to protest against his impending arrest. However, fearing a trap, far-right groups opted not to heed his requests. The investigation by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is one of several legal challenges facing Trump. An indictment could hurt Trump's comeback attempt, with some 44% of Republicans saying he should drop out of the 2024 presidential race if he's indicted, according to Reuters poll. Legal analysts say that hush money may be more difficult to prove than Bragg's conviction against Trump's businesses on tax fraud charges. This is an ongoing story with updates that will continue to come.
On March 21st, various schools across Los Angeles prepared to close down as a 3-day strike began. California has the second biggest district in the country with 422,000 students. As costs in California are on the rise, the workers in Los Angeles Unified School District are pushing for not only an increased pay, but improved workplace conditions. The New York Times explains that, quote, as many as 65,000 employees are expected to walk off the job, end quote. The local 99, which included a variety of non-teaching jobs like bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and more, are joined by the teachers of the Los Angeles Unified School District in hopes to achieve a 30% raise. A walkout like this is not the first time to occur, with multiple education strikes occurring in LA since 2019. As the district rushes to stop the strike from occurring, they are preparing by making centers around the community to provide not only meals for the course of 3 days, but daycare for those children whose parents are unable to work from home.
Still ahead, your update on sports from Caleb.
And more news from around the rail.
We'll be back in 60 seconds.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back. Debates in France over raising the retirement age have reached their climax earlier this week. In response to a hotly contested proposal aiming to raise retirement age from 62 to 64, legislatures initiated 2 votes of no confidence against President Macron's majority in the French National Assembly. The first motion failed only by a margin of 9 votes and demonstrated the minority party's fierce disapproval of this measure. This voting bloc expressed their disapproval of the law and their frustration with the speed at which it was pushed through Parliament. Despite backlash, the vote's failure affirms the passage of the controversial pension bill, which was rushed through voting earlier this month. Nonetheless, protests have spiked across France, including labor strikes and occasionally violent outbreaks. Although Macron's majority survived their contest in Parliament, they still face rising heat of public anger against the motion.
Recently, Slovakia announced a plan to send 13 retired MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine, with some being operational and the rest serving as spare parts for Ukraine's existing fleet. Alongside Slovakia, the president of Poland expressed they would also deliver 4 MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine in the coming days, making Poland the first country in a part of NATO to supply fighter planes to Ukraine. Ukraine has long requested warplanes to fight Russian forces, including US-made F-16 fighter jets. But the Biden administration has reportedly turned down the requests, blaming it on training and maintenance complications that their requests would be too complicated to fulfill during an already ongoing conflict. When the White House National Security Council was asked about Poland's plan to send warplanes to Ukraine, spokesman John Kirby told reporters, quote, "These are sovereign decisions for any country to make, and we respect those sovereign decisions," end quote. Still, the U.S. and other NATO allies have pledged to send other weaponry to Ukraine, including advanced rockets and battle tanks.
And now we'll turn it over to Caleb for sports. What you got, Caleb?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to sports. There's a whole lot to go over, so let's go ahead and get into it. Firstly, all of us here at Newswave would like to congratulate the Trinity women's basketball team on another fantastic season, which this year saw them finish with an impressive 28-2 season record, making it all the way to the NCAA Sweet 16. The team won both games here at Trinity on the weekend before spring break, but unfortunately lost their game against Tufts up in Massachusetts. After a rocky start to the season, Tiger baseball has turned things around, winning 7 of their last 9 games this season thanks to fantastic pitching and defense. This includes 2 10-0 wins against Austin College last weekend, sweeping the series against SCAC competition. Speaking of the SCAC, Trinity will no longer compete in the conference after 2025, following a school-wide announcement released via email on March 9th. The entirety of Trinity Athletics will now be joining the Southern Athletic Association, or SAA, in the fall of 2025, joining the same conference as Trinity football. The other school joining the SAA is Southwestern University from Georgetown, Texas, continuing the SCAC rivalry against the Pirates from their time again in the SCAC. Women's tennis has won their last 2 matches on the road, defeating both number 21 Mary Washington and number 22 Washington Lee. The Tigers are 8-3 on the season so far and kicked off a 4-match homestand yesterday on Thursday. Men's tennis also returns to Trinity today at a 7-4 record with 4 more games scheduled for a 5-game homestand. Moving on to professional sports now, an NFL free agency opened with a bang last week as teams across the league improved through either new contracts or big trades. The Dallas Cowboys in particular had a fantastic free agency signing, bucking the previous trends of avoiding big deals. The team made 2 massive trades for Texans receiver Brandon Cooks and Colts cornerback Stephon Gilmore, as well as making low-budget extensions with a huge impact. Linebacker Leighton Vander Esch was signed to a 2-year, $11 million deal, while the team restructured veteran offensive tackle Tyron Smith to free up some cap space. And finally, in baseball, the Japanese national team defeated the American national team on Tuesday night, winning 3-2 in an instant WBC Classic. The game went down to the final inning with Los Angeles players Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout going head-to-head on the final at-bat of the game, which was a back-and-forth affair. The U.S. took the lead after a Trey Turner solo home run in the second inning, but the Japanese came back with a homer of their own. Another run in the second allowed them to take a 2-1 lead, which then expanded to a 3-1 lead thanks to the bat of Kazuma Okamoto. A Kyle Schwarber blast off of Yu Darvish tightened the gap, but the U.S. couldn't close up as that remained the final score. The final at-bat was one for the ages as Angels superstars faced off. Trout, the face of a generation, at the plate with emerging phenom Ohtani on the mound. Ohtani threw 4 straight 100-mile-an-hour fastballs at Trout before getting him on an outside slider with a 3-2 count. Japan's WBC win capped off an undefeated tournament, which saw fantastic games all throughout, including their incredible 6-5 victory over Mexico in the semifinal. Shohei Ohtani earned MVP honors, giving Japan their 3rd WBC victory all time and breaking the U.S.'s hopes for a repeat title. The players will now return to action as they continue spring training, with opening day scheduled for next week on March 30th.
Well, Cole, so how was your break?
My break was pretty good, thank you. I went to Las Vegas, where I lived for a while, and it was great to go back there. I got to see some hockey games and see my family again. How about you?
It was great. Well, I went home to Washington, D.C., where I'm originally from. But the highlight for me was really to go ski up in Utah. Went to Park City and really enjoyed it. So.
That's awesome. How many times have you skied before?
Well, I actually was an avid skier when I was younger. Used to go almost every single year. But this was my first time in 10 years going back. So it took me a while to get up on my feet and get back into the groove. But I've definitely enjoyed it.
I can imagine. What level were you at when you stopped doing it?
Well, when I was being stopped at 8 years old, I was able to do some black runs up to some point, so I was doing very well, but came back and could hardly put on my skis without falling, so. But for a day, I was all good. Enjoyed it, though.
Oh, that's always fun. Being from Colorado, we like to ski. Usually go once a year. I'm at a much lower level, though. Skiing's hard.
Have you gone skiing a lot or at all?
No, not too much. Well, that's all the time we have. Always good talking to you, Luke. Make sure to join us next time, Friday, March 31st.
From everyone at Newswave, we hope you have a safe weekend. I'm Luke McCauley.
And I'm Cole Isaacson. We'll see you next week.